Hello, today I'm going to be showing you the progress I've been making on the Lazy Kates. So this is the new design, and as you can see, there's now a bottom portion to it. And the reason for that is the idea is that people can add their own weight to this, and I'll show you a little bit later an example of some weight you could add. I also put some rubber feet on the bottom, and if you compare it to the previous Lazy Kate, you'll see it's wider, and that's to help prevent it from tipping over. So if we just take a look at these two Lazy Kates, I mean, this one moves much easier. That's mostly because of the rubber feet, but then if you add in the posts on each one, I want to show you how the wideness of the base helps. So this one, just by virtue of it being a wider base, is a lot harder to tip over than this. Well, this one slides around, but if it is on a surface where it can't slide, it tips over a lot easier just because of the wideness. But when you add the weight to the bottom, it becomes much more difficult to tip over, and I know that was a big feature request for this new version. Another thing you'll notice is that there's a little magnet there. There's also a magnet right there. And the purpose of that is some people had issues with the Lazy Kates falling apart. But now with this version, the magnets hold the pieces together, and they're still not difficult to pull apart, but they definitely hold themselves and don't release in cases where you don't want them to release, like with the previous one. I've also redesigned these brake holders here so that they're a lot bigger, and that will make them stronger. Another thing worth pointing out is these bottom pieces are actually also being held together with magnets in this version. I've tried screws and I've tried magnets, and I think that, you know, either one works. I'll probably go with the magnets just because it's kind of cool, but if I end up finding advantages to the screws, I'll probably switch back to that. So I'm still doing a lot of testing here, and I welcome people's feedback. Just leave a comment if you have any suggestions at any time. Here's a little change that I made that makes a bigger difference than I thought. So a lot of people on the previous version had issues with this yarn spike being loud, and that's because it can kind of wobble around on the post. But with this one, I've got a little lip right there, and there's a little groove in this yarn spike here, and it doesn't wiggle around. I mean, it still wiggles, but not nearly as much, so that should help keep it quiet. Also, this little lip that I added right there supports the bobbins farther off this base portion, which also helps reduce the noise when you're rotating a bobbin. It touches in a much smaller area. So while I'm talking about the yarn spike, actually, I don't know if I should include the yarn spike. It does certainly cost some money to do that for me, and I don't have any good feeling for how many people are using the yarn spikes. So I'd like some feedback, if you've got it, on whether you found the yarn spike useful. So if you're not familiar, the idea is to take a yarn cake or a yarn ball and put it onto the spike, and then you can sort of knit off of this yarn spike while it's supported by the Lazy Kate like this. So it just kind of rolls off this spike. And I know some people definitely used it. I just don't know if it's enough to justify including the spike. But one thing that I got a lot of feedback for was a smaller diameter rod like this. And the reason for that is all of my electric eel wheel bobbins use 3/8 inch basically inner diameters for the bobbins, but a lot of other companies ship bobbins with smaller holes that won't fit onto the spike that I make. So I can make this smaller one, and that works with a lot more bobbins out there from other manufacturers of spinning wheels. And I was like, oh, people can just use different Lazy Kates on those, but it turns out that when people are picking a Lazy Kate, they want it to work with all their bobbins, which of course in retrospect makes sense, but that's why I didn't include something like that in the first one, but I'll definitely be including this in the updated Lazy Kate. So of course, I think I've shown this already, but the Kates are still stackable just like they used to be, and that's because I put little gaps in the bottom here. Now I want to talk a little bit more about the weighted base. So here's the original Lazy Kate base, and that's about 71 grams. And the new one, because it's got a bottom and because it's wider, is about 30% more. It's 103 grams. But then if we add in some weight, so I've just got sand here. You could use metal beads if you'd prefer. Metal beads are approximately 4 or 5 times heavier than sand. So if you wanted more weight to the base, you can definitely get it. But I'm just using sand here, and I'm just pouring it in. So here we go. I mean, you can see that's definitely not full. That's probably 3/4 full. So I could definitely get some more weight if I added more sand, but this is good enough to sort of show you guys. Both of these pieces lock together and the magnets sort of hold it together. You could use it if the sand's shifting around. I don't know if you can hear that noise, but it makes a little noise when you shake it in there. If you don't like that, you could add a little glue to the sand, and that would sort of prevent it from moving. Or, like I said, if you use metal beads, it's usually called steel shot, I think on Amazon they call it, and that's going to be several times heavier. But just adding, you know, partially full on sand, and that takes the base up to 222 grams. So that's, you know, it's going to be easy, even with sand, to get the base more than twice as heavy as it was before, and that's, you know, going to be 3 or 4 times as heavy as the previous base. And in my testing, that really locks the base in place and prevents a lot of sliding. So that's where I am with these Lazy Kates, and I definitely welcome feedback at this stage. I'm still making some more changes and getting them ready to start manufacturing pretty soon. Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching.